The courtroom was full that morning, busy, tense, and yet strangely ordinary. People sat waiting for their turn, flipping papers, whispering to lawyers, or scrolling silently through their phones. But none of them knew that in just a few minutes, they would witness something that would leave the entire room frozen in disbelief. At the center of the room sat Judge Frank Caprio, calm as always, gentle eyes, patient demeanor, the kind of person who didn't just hear cases, he listened to people. On his left side, the clerk called the next case. A man stepped forward. He looked tired but not broken. His clothes weren't fancy. His hands had roughness that comes from real work. He didn't look like someone who caused trouble, just someone who had lived a long, difficult life. And across from him stood a female officer, confident, firm, chin slightly raised. She had her case ready, her notes precise, and her voice steady. She believed she was right. She believed the man standing there was guilty. And she believed that her uniform gave her authority to be unquestioned. She didn't know this case would change the room. The clerk began reading the charge. Parking violation, vehicle obstruction, failure to comply. A list that made the man appear irresponsible, careless, maybe even reckless. The officer stepped forward and spoke clearly, almost sharply. "Your Honor, I witnessed everything personally." He blocked the roadway, ignored clear signs, and refused to move. I issued the ticket immediately. Her tone had certainty, confidence, even a slight edge of superiority, as if the outcome was already sealed. The man simply kept his hands folded. He didn't interrupt. He didn't argue. He just waited. Judge Caprio leaned forward slightly. "Sir, do you have anything to say?" The man took a deep breath, the kind a person takes when they've carried something heavy for a long, long time. "Your Honor, I have proof. I just ask that we look at it." A low, curious murmur spread across the courtroom. Phones lowered. Heads turned. The officer raised an eyebrow, almost amused. "Proof of what?" "My testimony is clear." The man didn't react to her tone. His voice remained calm, steady, grounded, not in anger, but in truth. "I respect officers. I really do. But sometimes, even good people can be wrong." That struck something. Small, but noticeable. Judge Caprio nodded gently. "Bring up the footage." Those words changed everything. The screen was prepared. The lights dimmed slightly. Everyone leaned in, curiosity shifting to anticipation. The officer crossed her arms. The man lowered his eyes. And as the first frame of the video appeared on the courtroom screen, the entire room became silent, so silent that you could hear the hum of the projector. This wasn't just another case anymore. This was truth walking into the room and lies about to be exposed under the brightest light of all. Not anger, not revenge, just reality. And reality doesn't need to shout, it just needs to be seen. Before this moment, before the courtroom fell into silence, everything seemed routine. Just another morning at the Providence Municipal Court. People lining up, officers standing ready, paperwork shuffling from one desk to another. The kind of day that blends into 100 others. The female officer, Officer Daniels, had arrived early. Her uniform was perfectly ironed, badge shining, posture straight. She had a reputation, strict, efficient, and fast. To many she was admirable. To others she was intimidating. And though she believed deeply in enforcing the law somewhere along the way, she had begun to think that enforcing and dominating were the same thing. Her mornings usually went one way. Issue the ticket. Record the violation. Defend her report. Done. But the man standing in front of her today wasn't like the others. His name was Michael Hayes, age 54, a construction worker, widower, father of 2 grown children, a man who knew what it meant to struggle quietly without making the world hear his pain. His hands rough from years of labor, his shoulders heavy with responsibilities that nobody else could see. He didn't walk into the courtroom with anger. He walked in with truth and the patience of someone who had been overlooked many times before. How the incident happened: it was early morning when the violation took place. Michael had stopped his pickup truck outside a medical clinic. His mother, 87 years old, weak and needing assistance, was inside, undergoing a medical test. The street signs were strict. No standing and emergency vehicles only. Michael knew the rules. He'd been driving that street for 20 years. But sometimes life does not ask permission. His mother had called, her voice trembling. "Beta, I can't walk properly. I need you to help me." He parked the truck for exactly 3 minutes, helped her inside the doors, and returned to find Officer Daniels already writing the ticket. He approached her, breath slightly heavy from assisting his mother. "Ma'am, please. I just helped my mother inside. She's not well." Officer Daniels did not look up. Violation already recorded. Michael tried again. 3 minutes. "Just 3. If you'd seen her," she cut him off sharply. "Not my problem. The law is the law." There was no softness in her tone, no question, no curiosity, no humanity, just procedure. To Officer Daniels, this was a simple case. Man breaks rule, man gets ticket, end of story. But Michael's story was never simple. What happened next? Michael didn't yell. He didn't curse. He didn't threaten. He simply asked, "Do you have footage?" "I want to show what happened," Officer Daniels scoffed. Footage won't change a violation. But Michael knew something she didn't. A nearby store, an old pharmacy, still maintained security cameras pointed directly toward the clinic entrance. The owner had seen everything. He had even stepped outside, offering to talk to the officer. But she had waved him away, dismissing him like background noise. Michael had gone back later that day, spoken to the owner, and obtained the footage. He didn't plan revenge. He didn't seek embarrassment. He just wanted fairness, and now, here in court, that proof rested in a small USB drive in his pocket. But this moment in the courtroom wasn't just about whether Michael was right or wrong. It was about something deeper. Does power give someone the right to dismiss others? Is law meant to punish or to understand? And what happens when truth stands quietly in the face of arrogance? As the projector flickered and the courtroom leaned forward, everything that happened next would change not only one ticket, but the pride of a uniform, the respect of a man, and the meaning of justice for everyone watching. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the clerk connected the USB to the projection system. A soft blue light flickered across the screen at the front of the room. All eyes were now fixed on it. Not on the officer, not on Michael, not even on Judge Caprio. The entire room seemed to lean forward at once, drawn toward the truth waiting to emerge. Officer Daniels maintained her posture, arms crossed, jaw firm. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She believed nothing in that video could challenge her certainty. Because in her mind, she was the authority. Michael, meanwhile, stood still, hands clasped, shoulders relaxed. A kind of calm that didn't come from confidence but from knowing he had nothing left to hide. Judge Caprio nodded gently. "Let's begin." The screen brightened. The footage opened on a quiet street. The morning sun was rising low, casting soft shadows along the sidewalk. Cars passed occasionally. A pedestrian or two walked by. It was an ordinary scene, nothing dramatic. And then, Michael's truck pulled up, slowly, carefully. He parked not carelessly, not diagonally, not blocking the road like the officer had claimed. He pulled close to the curb, hazard lights blinking. The courtroom watched closely. Michael got out of the truck. His movements were gentle, almost cautious. He walked around to the passenger side and opened the door. There, stepping down slowly, was his elderly mother, frail, leaning heavily on his shoulder. A whisper spread through the room. "Officer." Daniels tightened her jaw. Michael supported his mother's weight as carefully as someone holds something precious. He walked with her step by step toward the clinic entrance. It was slow, painfully slow. Not the walk of someone trying to cheat the system, but of someone trying to protect someone they loved. Once inside, he returned immediately to his vehicle. The entire scene lasted 2 minutes and 41 seconds, not 10 minutes. Not ignoring signs, not refusing to move, just a son helping his mother. Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair. The room had gone very still, but the video wasn't finished yet. A second figure came into frame, the pharmacy owner, stepping out onto the sidewalk, waving toward Officer Daniels' patrol car. He was trying to speak to her, pointing toward the clinic door. She never looked up. She continued writing, completely ignoring him. Then she issued the ticket and left. No observation. No assessment. No humanity. Just execution of authority. without understanding the situation. A long silence followed, not the silence of suspense, but the silence of realization. Officer Daniels stared at the screen, her confidence draining, though she tried to hide it. Her voice came out quieter, thinner. I must have misinterpreted the situation. Judge Caprio didn't raise his voice. He didn't lean forward aggressively. He didn't shame her. He simply looked at her with the kind of calm that weighs more than anger. Officer, your job is not just to enforce the law. Your job is to see people. Her lips pressed tightly. The uniform that once looked powerful now looked heavy. Michael simply exhaled. A breath he had been holding for months. No triumph, no smirk, no satisfaction, just relief. Because when truth speaks, it speaks softly but clearly. The courtroom now understood the conflict was never about a parking space. It was about the difference between enforcing rules and practicing justice. The video ended, but the silence it left behind did not. It hung in the room like thick fog, heavy, unmoving, undeniable. For a moment, no one spoke. No one shifted. No one even breathed loudly, because what they had just watched wasn't simply evidence. It was a reflection, a mirror held up to authority and humanity. Judge Caprio slowly folded his hands. His voice was soft, but every syllable carried weight. Officer Daniels, would you like to respond? She swallowed hard. The confidence she had worn earlier, like armor, now feeling fragile and thin. Her eyes flickered first toward the judge, then quickly away. She was searching for words, but the truth had already spoken for her, loudly and clearly. Your Honor, I believed I remembered the incident accurately. I didn't realize. Michael looked at her, not with anger, not with satisfaction, but with something almost unsettling in its gentleness. He wasn't trying to win. He wasn't trying to defeat anyone, he just wanted to be seen. Judge Caprio leaned forward, slow, respectful, deliberate. Officer, the question here is not whether the violation was written correctly. The question is, did you look? Did you see the situation? Her mouth trembled slightly. She opened it to speak, then closed it again. The answer was already clear. She hadn't seen. She hadn't paused. She hadn't asked. She assumed. And assumptions, especially from power, carry consequences. The courtroom responds. A man in the gallery wiped his eye. A woman shook her head, whispering, "That could have been my father." Someone somewhere muttered, "She didn't even give him a chance." But it wasn't anger filling the room. It was disappointment, not in the officer as a person, because everyone can make mistakes, but in the way her authority had blocked her empathy. The pharmacy owner, who had come to the court just in case his testimony was needed, stepped forward. His voice was steady but emotional. "Your Honor." The man didn't block anything. He was just helping his mother. I tried to tell the officer, but she didn't listen. Officer Daniels lowered her gaze, not because of shame from others, but because it echoed something inside her. Listening isn't just hearing. Listening is respect, and respect had been missing that day. Judge Caprio's reflection. Judge Caprio turned his attention back to the courtroom, his tone not harsh but instructive, almost fatherly. Laws are made to protect us, but law without compassion becomes punishment, and punishment without understanding becomes cruelty. The room felt his words, because they weren't just about a parking ticket, they were about life, power, dignity, humanity. Officer. Daniels finally spoke, quiet. Honest now, I should have taken a moment. I should have asked. I failed to see the person in front of me. And there it was. Not defeat, but growth. Michael nodded, just a small, understanding nod. The kind of gesture that says we are all human, we all stumble. What matters is whether we learn. The turning point. Judge Caprio took a deep breath before announcing his decision. Not rushing, not dragging, but giving weight to the moment. The ticket is dismissed completely. A soft sigh of relief passed through the room, but Judge Caprio wasn't finished. Officer, I hope this teaches you something you carry with you long after today. Your power is not shown when you enforce the law. Your power is shown when you remain human while enforcing it. Officer Daniels nodded, eyes glistening. Not from humiliation, but from realization. Sometimes the hardest truth is the one we discover about ourselves. As the whisper of relief settled across the courtroom, something deeper lingered beneath the surface. The case had been dismissed, yes. The truth had been acknowledged. But the story was not done, not yet. Because what this moment revealed was not just that Michael was innocent. It revealed everything that had gone unseen until now. Officer Daniels stood still, her uniform feeling heavier than before. Not because someone had attacked her integrity, but because she had finally seen what she had been blind to. Judge Caprio wasn't someone who simply passed verdicts. He observed. He understood. He taught. And today's lesson was not going to vanish as soon as the next case was called. He leaned back in his chair and looked at Michael. "Sir, how is your mother now?" The room paused again, not with shock but with a softness no one expected. Michael's voice was quiet, steady. "She's stable. Some days are better. Some are harder. But she's still here. And I'm grateful." His words weren't dramatic. They weren't loud. But they carried the weight of real love, the kind that doesn't ask the world to notice. The gallery listened, not just with ears but with hearts. Judge Caprio nodded slowly. "You did what a son should do, and that is something no law can punish." The line didn't just soothe Michael. It hit the room like a truth everyone knew but often forgot. Some fights are not between right and wrong. Some fights are between being correct and being kind. What the court had really witnessed in that courtroom, people had seen. Authority without empathy, obedience without understanding, decision without observation, and then they had seen what happens when truth rises quietly, not with force, not with anger, but with patience. Michael did not argue. He did not insult. He did not raise his voice. He simply waited, because truth does not hurry. Truth arrives exactly when it is most needed. The human weight on the Officer Daniels finally spoke, not defensively, not proudly, but honestly. "Your Honor, I let my position speak louder than my perception. I didn't see him. I only saw a violation, and that was wrong." Her voice trembled, not from fear of punishment, but from the realization of how easy it is to lose sight of humanity when wearing a badge meant to protect it. Judge Caprio's reply was gentle, yet strong. "Everyone in this courtroom has made mistakes. What matters is whether we allow those mistakes to teach us something. Today is your lesson. Carry it into every duty from now on. This was not condemnation. This was restoration, and restoration is more powerful than punishment." The gallery observed silently, not judging her, but understanding her. Because every person in that room knew one truth: kindness forgotten can always be remembered again. Michael's final words. Michael turned to Officer Daniels, not with triumph or superiority, but with humility. "I don't want anything from this. I just wanted someone to listen. That's all." Officer Daniels met his eyes. For the first time that day, she saw him, not as a case, not as a number, not as a violation, but as a human being, and sometimes that is the greatest reveal of all. The moment was not loud. There were no cheers, no applause, just a quiet shift, subtle but unmistakable. A room that entered divided, had just learned what empathy truly looks like. The courtroom began to breathe again, softly, slowly. The tension had dissolved, not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. The kind that reaches deeper than rules, deeper than positions, deeper than pride. It touched the level where humanity lives. Judge Caprio rested his hands onto the bench. He didn't rush to end the moment. He knew what everyone in the room was feeling, that something important had just taken place. Not dramatic, not loud, but meaningful. Michael stepped back slightly, letting out the quietest sigh of relief. It wasn't the sigh of someone who'd won anything. It was the sigh of someone who no longer had to carry proof like a shield. Officer Daniels remained standing. Her posture wasn't rigid now. It wasn't defensive. It wasn't proud, it was sincere. Her voice when she finally spoke was softer than anyone had heard from her before. "Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry." The courtroom didn't react. No one gasped. No one whispered. Because this wasn't a performance. It was a moment of real accountability. Michael didn't rush to respond. He simply nodded. "Thank you. We all have days we wish we handled better. No bitterness. No resentment. No need to make her feel small, and in that moment, you could see it clearly. Grace is louder than anger. Judge Caprio's guidance. Judge Caprio looked between the two of them, as if ensuring both hearts were truly present. Officer, the law gives you authority, but your heart gives you credibility. Never lose the second while using the first. She nodded slowly, absorbing every word, not as correction, but as guidance she needed. Then he turned to Michael. And you showed patience today. Not everyone would have. That patience allowed the truth to be seen. Michael lowered his head modestly, almost embarrassed by the attention. I just wanted to help my mother, Your Honor, that's all. And that simplicity was exactly what made the moment so powerful. The courtroom learned something too. The gallery didn't erupt. They didn't celebrate. They didn't choose sides. They understood. That could have been their mother, their grandfather, their sibling, their moment of urgency, their request for just a little understanding. Everyone saw themselves in Michael, and everyone saw what they hoped authority would look like in Officer Daniels. Now learning how to become that kind of officer. The lesson wasn't spoken aloud. Respect is not earned through power. It is earned through presence walking forward. The clerk called the next case, but for a moment no one moved. The feeling in the air needed time to settle, to be carried out of the courtroom and into the world beyond its walls. Michael walked toward the exit, slow, steady, shoulders lighter. Officer Daniels didn't leave right away. She watched him go, not with regret, but with understanding and a promise to herself, a promise to see people from now on, to pause, to ask, to recognize that behind every action, there is a story. She would never write another ticket the same way again. Not because she feared being wrong, but because she remembered what it feels like to be right without being fair. A quiet ending. Judge Caprio watched them both as they left. He didn't smile widely. He didn't nod dramatically. He simply breathed, calmly, knowingly, because he had seen this before. The law may resolve cases, but compassion resolves people, and today, compassion had done its job, not by winning, but by mending. When Michael stepped out of the courtroom, the hallway felt different, not because the building had changed, but because he had walked out with something he didn't have when he entered. His dignity seen, his truth acknowledged. He didn't celebrate. He didn't boast. He simply walked the same way he had walked all his life, quiet, steady, carrying love for his mother like a badge no one could ever take from him. Inside the courtroom, Officer Daniels remained still, hands clasped behind her back. She stared down at her notebook, not because she needed to write anything, but because she was reflecting on everything. She didn't lose her job. She wasn't publicly humiliated. She wasn't scolded into shame. But something inside her had shifted in a way uniforms, rules, and training manuals rarely teach. She had learned a lesson only real life gives. Authority is not the right to be obeyed. Authority is the responsibility to understand. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to remember why she became an officer. Not to issue tickets. Not to prove power. Not to control situations, but to protect people. Real people. People with families. People with fears. People with reasons. The very people she had stopped seeing. Her apology to Michael had not been forced. It had come from realization. From being confronted not by anger, but by quiet, unshakable truth. And just like that, empathy returned to her heart like something that had always been there, simply waiting to be remembered. The courtroom's unspoken lesson. Everyone who witnessed the case walked away with their own reflection. Some thought of their parents. Some thought of moments when they themselves had been judged too quickly. Some remembered when they had judged others without asking why. Because the truth is, every one of us has stood in one of those two positions at some point. Needing understanding, or being the one who failed to offer it, and the world changes depending on which one we choose next. Judge Caprio's silent wisdom. Judge Caprio didn't have to lecture the room. He didn't have to raise his voice. He didn't have to force lessons. He simply allowed truth to speak and compassion to settle. That has always been his strength. He understood something powerful. Justice is not blind. Justice sees everything, but chooses to look with kindness. The moral respect is not something we reserve only for uniforms, titles, wealth. or power. Respect is something we offer because someone is human, just human. And sometimes the greatest proof of strength is not how loudly we stand, but how gently we see, because you never know the weight someone is carrying. You never know the reason behind their actions. You never know the story behind their silence, and sometimes the person you looked down on today is the person you will look up to tomorrow. If you believe humility is real strength, type respect. If you believe every human deserves to be heard, type listen. And before you scroll away, tell me where you are watching from. I want to thank every kind soul who believes that compassion is not weakness. It is power, the most powerful kind. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. Thank you for choosing respect.